Hello and welcome to the next chapter, and this is the very first video, and this is where you will start coding. And it's going to be interesting, especially for those of you who are like new to coding, which I assume most of you will be new to this coding. There is an additional challenge as well, something that I've noticed as a tutor. Again, not trying to brag or something, but I've been teaching for like some 12 years professionally. And before that, already way back when I was young, I was already teaching my classmates and friends and stuff like that, because many of them were struggling coding as well, which is probably where I got the idea that I might be good at teaching. So, what I've noticed is when it comes to first time coding, there is the challenge of learning to code, which already is a new experience. And another challenge is that a lot of new developers would be new to using computers as well. That may seem a little strange, but it does. And especially, in the last 10, 12 years, more and more people just get everything done on their mobile phone and in some cases from their iPads. So what has happened is, at least before in the olden days, people would have to use computers at least for some of the work. But now, with a lot of things happening on that mobile phone and tablet things, there are many who can simply get by their entire life without actually ever touching a computer. So what I have noticed in many of my batches is that because I focus on teaching first timers, I've noticed that a lot of people are in fact not only new to coding, they're also new to using computers. And that is okay. So if you are already familiar with using computers, now what I mean by using computers, you'll see for yourself in a few minutes. What I mean by that is that you might be new to, if you are new to even using computers, like if you bought a new computer just for the sake of this course and to become a developer, then it's okay. I will go ahead and show you some steps which may, some people might consider like, okay, not really necessary, but in fact, in my experience, it is very necessary. So I will be doing that also. So don't worry about it if you are something that happens when you're learning anything, and including coding, of course, is sometimes you feel sometimes you feel like, hey, that is so um, not very smart. Like, hey, how come I didn't know how to do that? I'm like an adult. And I'm a working person. How come I don't know how to do stuff like this? Something so simple. It's okay. There are so many simple things which can be very complex when you are learning something new. So let's keep that in mind as we continue in this course. Okay. So let me go ahead and here. So the first thing is right then. So in this chapter, we will be learning about basic HTML tags. All right. But more importantly, what I would like you to understand is that you need to, oh, I didn't show the screen. Hold on, hold on. There you go. Yeah. So basic HTML tags. But first, there are some simple things which some of you may be able to do it without any help, but I know as a experienced tutor, there are some who may find the whole process extremely difficult. Things like there is something called as a project folder. In programming, usually what we do is whenever you're working on something, you're working on software development. So you need to ensure that you are ready with what is called as a project folder. A project folder is the one that contains all your code. You may remember from our earlier videos that unlike other programming languages like C# and .NET, we don't have a IDE in web development. So you are responsible to create all the necessary things yourself. Now that might sound like an additional complexity, and of course, beyond this course, we'll talk about that at the end of this course. Beyond the course, if you go into advanced learning or software development, there are tools, of course, which solve some of the IDE lacking problems. But in general, a lot of things in web development, you have to learn to do it yourself. There's not much tooling help like how you may have in C# and Java and so on and so forth. You'll get used to it. It may seem strange, but then again, if you're a new developer, you may not even miss it because you never used it. But of course, I started with those tools and I do miss it sometimes. But anyway, so the first thing you will show you is how to create your project folder. But before we get into it, I want to talk about something. I want you to understand that when you're learning something, again, programming specifically, I highly recommend, I know this seems silly, a pen, oh, sorry, a book, a notebook, and a pen and paper. It may seem silly. Obviously, these days nobody writes, nobody gets a notebook. Maybe some people do, but I've not seen many people use it. But in my experience, I do a lot of training, I do a lot of batches. What I've noticed is, I even today, obviously, I have a pen and paper. I didn't just take these things just to make this video. I always have pen and paper. I always jot down things. Even right now, when I'm learning something, I always go ahead and make sure that I jot down things. It really, really helps. It's not mandatory, but in my experience, I have felt that people who take notes with their hand, they seem to remember things more easily. Maybe it's because you're putting in some kind of a manual effort to making notes. So if possible, try to take that advice of mine. Second thing is, now, there is a certain section of the developer community, and the thing is, there are some people who believe that you must remember every aspect of programming. As you will see in this chapter and the future chapters, as we do more and more coding, you will realize that there is simply too much for one person to remember. Okay, now, again, there are some developers, especially experienced developers, senior developers, by the book developers, who insist that you should not take any outside help when you are becoming a software developer. It's frowned upon and sometimes even looked down upon. But I myself, I'm not in that category. As a teacher, as a tutor, I believe that any kind of help that you can take to learn better, to become a better software developer, you should take it. So during the class, even myself, even though I've been coding since I was 15, I'm 40 now. So I've been coding for 25 years. But still, even today, when I'm working on a project, I have no problems looking up information on the internet. I have no problems, especially AI. In the last 1 year, AI has really become very, very useful for me. I've already talked about it in the earlier videos, and I'll be showing how to use AI whenever I do some coding, because you might also want to use it, because it is happening, guys. It is happening and you can't escape it. Even if, let's say, you for some reason don't want to take extra help from online resources, from example code, from AI, but other people are doing it. Like, for example, I am doing it. So when I'm working on a project these days, I always use AI. It helps me. If something that can be done in, say, in a day, let's say I usually work for about 4 hours when I'm working on a project. So if I work for 4 hours, before, without AI, it may have taken 6 hours. But now with AI, I'm able to save a lot of time and reduce the amount of errors. So I'm not ashamed of using AI, even if some people think, oh, you are a developer, you must know everything in your head. I don't really subscribe to that concept. So please go ahead. Any kind of extra help you need while you're learning, while you're coding, while you're doing assignments, and even when you start working. I know for a fact there are a lot of companies who have started buying bulk subscriptions for AI for their employees because it helps them get things faster. If not AI, then online resources, example code, and stuff like that. So please do not hesitate to use external. I'm not saying you should copy or plagiarize content. No, I'm saying take help. Taking help is not plagiarization. Like whenever you do an assignment as part of this course, you can look at the example code, but nothing is stopping you from taking help from the example code and making it your own. Okay, so just remember that. Please remember that. Do not hesitate. I'm saying this again and again because there are some developers who look down upon it, but I don't think that's right, because now we are in a different era of software development. Maybe 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when the internet wasn't that widely available, when AI wasn't that widely available, the software industry was still very new. Maybe it was expected that you remember everything. But now, there is so much information. I mean, I believe I mentioned this before, and I'll again keep talking about it. Today, the job of a developer has become so complex. A developer has to do so many, many things. I really, in many ways, I'm glad that I'm already an experienced developer, because if I were to start my career today, I would be overwhelmed if I was a younger person, because the amount of things are expected from me right from the first day is so immense. It would be, sort of like apprehensive to me. So yes, any kind of help that it will help you become a developer faster, it'll help you become a better developer by that, go for it. Just go for it. Don't worry about people who think that's wrong or something like that. So there you go. That's the main thing. So let's go ahead and show you how to create your project folder. Now there are simple steps here. Now again, some people might just look at this and know already how to do it, but I know there are a lot of people who have no idea how to do this. So let's go ahead and show you how to create your project folder. Let me just get everything ready here. So there you go. So right now I am on my, let me bring up my screen here. So what I'll do is I have my folders and everything. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead. Let me just remove my face as well, because you might want to see the entire screen. There you go. So I have my folder here called the downloads folder. And then what I'll do is I'll right click and I'll create a new folder. And I'm going to call this HTML practice. This is the HTML basics. So I'm going to say HTML basics practice 1. Now, I've seen some students who just keep it as a new folder and stuff like that. Please don't do it. Okay. And also when you're practicing, please make sure you do all these things in your Git repository that we discussed in earlier video. So I have the folder now. The next thing for me to do is to go ahead and use VS Code. Okay, so let's go ahead and open VS Code. I have my VS Code up and running here. Let me just get it ready. Okay, there we go. So I've got my VS Code up and running. There it comes. Again, I'm going to remove my face from the video because you may want to see the whole screen. So I have my VS Code here. Now what I need to do is I need to open that folder, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and click on the open button. Okay, there we go. It brings up the Finder. Now here I want to go to downloads. That is where I have my practice folder. So, and then I'm going to open the folder. Okay. So now this step again seems silly, but I've seen people struggle with this. So go ahead, pause the video and just repeat the step any number of times you want. Don't forget to give your folder a meaningful name. Okay, now the next thing is we have to create, as I showed in the PowerPoint, we have to create three files. So this step is done. Let's go ahead and create these 3 files. So let me go back to VS Code, and here I'm going to right click, okay, and then I'm going to say index.html. And then I'm going to create another file. I'm going to call this script.js. Now you don't need script.js right now, but still, because we are learning this, you'll need it eventually. So go ahead and create that as well. And obviously we need to create a style.css. So there you go. 3 parts of any web development project. You have the index file, script file, and JavaScript file. Now there are some basic things we always put when I create a new project. Now, if you look, we have provided the example starter code along with this chapter notes. So please go ahead and take the starter code. I already have my starter code on my computer. So let me bring it up on the screen here. There it is. So I have my starter code. Let me just bring up my screen again. I have kept in our repository, you'll find a folder called Web Development Starter. And another thing I wanted to notice here is that as the video progresses, we will start with the starter folder and we are going to build our, every chapter is like a mini project in its own way. So every chapter we have divided it into different parts. Okay, so that I want you to learn that way. So focus on the first part, and only when you're sure you're able to do the first part without any help, you go ahead and do the second part and third part and fourth part and so on. Sometimes there are like many parts, sometimes there's only one part. So depending on the severity of the topic, we have made more parts or less parts. Same thing with the video. So this is like part 1 of the video. Actually, this is part 0, and then part 1 video, part 2 video, and every video corresponds to a specific part in the folder. Okay. So, all right then. So there you go. I have my web development starter folder. So I'm just going to open this. And now what I actually have 2 things now. So let me just remove my face from the screen so you can see the whole thing. So what I have is I actually have 2 things. I have my starter folder, okay, and then I have my practice folder. So the starter folder is for my reference. It is for your reference. Okay. Now, if you want to, you can type out this code when you are practicing with us. Okay. Or if you feel like it, you can simply copy paste the whole thing and it's really not a bad idea. So you can do a combination of it. Some things, if it's too much, you can copy paste. Some things you can type it out. It's really okay. I have no specific preference. Either way, you will eventually become a developer. I prefer the copy paste method because it makes me faster, and also because I'm so old, I already know what is happening. So typing it will not really help my career in any way. So copy pasting when I can, I just go for it. It's not a big issue. So there you go, folks. So let me, also I have my index.html. I'm just going to take this starter code from here, Command A on Mac, Control A on Windows, and then I'm going to come back to my practice folder, and then I'm going to paste it. On the Mac, it's Command V. On the Windows, it's Control V. So there you go. I have that. I'll explain what those things are in the next video. Next, I am going to go ahead to come back here, the script file. Okay, and then I'm going to copy. So again, I'm hiding my face because I want you to see the entire screen as I'm doing this. So I'll go to my script.js file here in my practice folder. I'll just put something here. What is this console log? We'll talk about it in the JavaScript chapter. For now, just roll with it. And finally, I have style.cs file. I'll go here, style.cs file. It has a lot of things. You'll notice that some things are in green color, some things are not in green color. Don't let that confuse you. So what I'll do is I only want the items that are not in green color. So I'm just going to take this here. I'm just going to dump this here. Now again, there are a lot of things here which are in green color. I'm just going to delete it just to avoid any confusion that you might get. Okay, there are some wavy lines. Just ignore it for now. We'll worry about that later. Just something, just roll with me for now. So there you go, folks. So I have my index.html file. I have my script.js file. And then I have my style.css file. As of now, it's okay. Just ignore these wavy lines for now. But if those things are bothering you, you can just select the whole thing and do command slash. Command slash is for comments. We'll talk about that as the videos continue. On Windows, it is control slash. Okay, so just get rid of it. So now the wavy lines are gone. Here, there are no wavy lines. Everything is great. Here also, everything is great. One thing is, I notice here that line number 8, it says styles.css. I have made the file as style.css. So I'm just going to go ahead and right click and rename this. There you go, that matches. And then finally, what I'll do is I will just go ahead and this is a preview. I mentioned in the earlier video that you need to have an extension called live preview installed because that will help you run your website. You have to install it. It is a requirement. I also have something called prettier. If you want to, that's optional. That's fine. It makes your code look a little pretty. All right, then. So let's come back. So make sure you select index.html and then click on the preview option. And there it is. So that is what you should see on your computer if everything works as expected. Okay, you have to get this. You have to get this. And if you're able to get this with a lot of difficulty or easily, then you are on the right track. So this is what you should see. And of course, you take this and then you go to, let me just open Firefox on my computer here. Yeah, Firefox is up. Now I'm going to put the URL that I copied and I'm just going to, there you go. Okay, and I mentioned before that when you're doing programming, it is good if you have 2 or 3 monitors. Like right now, even when I'm making this video, I have the main monitor where all these things are happening. I also have second monitor for keeping additional things. And sometimes I even get a third monitor. So I have 3 displays when I'm working. So for a developer, I always say, you must eventually, if not right away, get a second monitor and eventually, hopefully, a third monitor. Very, very essential. Okay, and also, as I mentioned, a lot of times when you're coding, you have to look up a lot of information. During my tutorial, I'll be frequently looking at my own code because I don't remember everything. I can't. It's impossible. So every now and then, whenever I'm teaching, just to make sure I'm not making any mistakes, that's the main reason. I don't want to teach something wrong. So what I do is I look at the example code as I'm teaching you. So I'll always be looking here. So it doesn't mean I'm ignoring you. It just means that I'm making sure that I'm not making any mistakes. So similarly, when you are coding, code on the main screen, use a second monitor and a third monitor for looking at information and stuff like that. One more thing there, I can't show it here, but what I normally do is I take this one and I put it on the other monitor. See? Okay, so whenever I'm working on, I code on the main monitor, I look at the output on my second monitor. So that is also something I prefer doing it, because if you have to look, if you're coding and then you have to look at the output, it takes up space. You have to keep clicking here. It takes up space. So again, so if you have a second monitor, so what you can do is you can take, like, look what I'm doing. I mean, I can't show you, but you can see that the Firefox is going away to the other monitor, and I'm bringing it back. So because I can only record one screen, I'm showing you on everything on a single monitor. But ideally, you should have two monitors when you're learning programming, and three is not overkill at all. Maybe four monitors is overkill, but two and three monitors, not a bad idea. So there you go, folks. That is the end of our part zero video. But in the next video, we'll be talking about the basic structure, the basic HTML tags. I already showed you how to use preview. So next chapter, we'll go and look into the basic tags that you need to know. And this will be your first programming experience. Okay. And this chapter, even though it's very simple, it looks very, very simple. As with all other chapters, I would request you to watch the video, pause the video, repeat the video. When you're learning from a video, you have to, keep backtracking and coming back. Practice, practice, practice. And eventually, this step, you should be able to do without thinking. Like, ideally, it should not take more than 5 seconds to create the folder with all the files and with a simple output. So you have to reach that stage. And I hope you'll do that before moving on to the next video. Okay, so welcome to, this is the part one. If I show you my folder structure here, the game plan that I have, let me just bring up my screen here. So you can see here that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts. I have divided this very first chapter into 5 parts. So you will be building, well, what will you be building? So let's go ahead and open that, please. So what exactly is the goal of this specific chapter, which we'll be building in parts? So let me go ahead and bring up that. As usual, I have my folder. There you go. Now again, this is the folder. This code is already shared with you in our GitHub repository. And then there it is. This is the final thing which you're going to be building. So let me bring it up here. Let me go ahead and open that. Let's go and open this here. Okay, there you go. So this is the final project that we'll be building. So it's already running on my computer. So let me just take this here and then I'm going to bring it up on the Firefox. Let's do that. Okay, there you go. So this is what you'll be building at the end of this chapter. It doesn't look nice at all, because this is just your first chapter. You see the image looks really big. We'll make it smaller, no problem, it's fine. But I purposefully left that big on purpose. So there you go. And then, it's like a simple list. Again, none of this looks pretty. None of this looks attractive. It's not supposed to look attractive. Not this early anyway. You saw the milestone project. So we will eventually reach a stage where everything does look nice at the end of the course. But right now we are just starting. So we're going to keep things relatively unattractive, so to speak. Again, another image, a simple list. Again, another image, another simple list. And, again, that's a photo which I put. And a simple form with some buttons and stuff like that. And a box and a submit button and things like that. So, like that. And then there you go. It's like, it's not going to submit because, it's not going to go anywhere. So that's fine. So there you go, folks. This is what you will be building. It doesn't look attractive at all, but that's okay. We are just getting started. By the time we reach the end of the course, you will be building the NASA project I talked about. So it will get prettier as the course progresses. So there you go. This is what we are going to build eventually at the end of all the parts, all the video tutorials of this specific chapter. So this is the goal for this specific section. Now, what about the first part? Now, what will you be building in the very first part? Let me go ahead and bring that up as well on the screen for you. So I'm going to go back again. I'm going to put this full project on the other monitor. As I mentioned, while I'm talking to you, I will frequently look at the example code. I do need to look at it. Because one, I can't remember all the code, and second, I don't want to make any mistakes. So I'll keep looking like this. Whenever I'm looking like that, I'm just making sure I'm on the right track. But no, what is the first thing we are doing? So once again, let me open another folder here. What you'll be building in this part of the video. So let's get that here, And here, there it is, part 1. Okay. And here comes the screen. I'm going to remove my face. So there you go. So whenever you want to see the output, you have to make sure the index.html is open. And then there you go. So this is similar to what we had, but there's one small change. Okay, so this is going to be very quick chapter. So let's go. So this is what we're going to know. What is the difference though? Now, this is what we are trying to build. I'm going to keep this on the side a little bit here, and I'm going to go to our practice folder. Now you'll see that if I make this a little bit side by side, they are both giving the same output. So what exactly are we missing here? So what is the difference is in the files. Okay, now if I go to our target, now this is our target. Okay, the first target. Now you'll notice, let me just see, you'll see here on the left side, we have some files which are added. If I go to my practice project, I'll see that it doesn't have those files. So that is your step number 1. You have to get, let me just go ahead and create a slide for that. Let me just put this in the slide. So the idea, hold on, let me just delete this. So your first step is to learn how to add files, in this case images, to your project. Now once again, this may seem like something which is very straightforward and simple. If it is simple for you, then I am happy for you, but then again, as I mentioned, I teach a lot of beginner students, and this step could be a complex step for them. So let's go ahead and do that. The first step is, now before you can add something, you need to make sure that you have it. So you have to use some images. Now there are many ways you can get images. You can use your own personal images, or you can use the images that we have given you. Okay, or you can download some images from the internet. It really doesn't matter how you get the images, what images and stuff like that. So but if you're looking for me to give you an advice, then what the simplest thing you can do is just use the images that we have already given to you, the images that you can take from our GitHub repository, or just download it from the chapter notes. Okay, so let's go ahead. What I'll do is, let's say I have already downloaded it. So what am I going to do? Let me just bring up my example project here. So I have my example project. I'm just bringing it up. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go to my example project. I have my example project here already downloaded. So I'm going to go select this, select this, select this. So on Windows, you have to use Control when you're selecting multiple files. On the Mac, it's Command. So select these 3 files, right click, copy, and then go to your folder. So where is your project folder? So go here. This is our practice folder, right? The one that doesn't have the images. So right click. You have an option called Reveal in Finder. On Windows, it will be Reveal in Windows, right? So and then you reveal in Finder, and then you go here, right click, and then paste. And now come back to VS Code. You'll see that all the images have been added. You can even make sure it's there. So there you go. That's there. That's there. And that's there. Okay. So there you go. So this is what I wanted you to do on the first part. Once again, it seems like a very simple step. Okay, if it felt like a simple step, I'm really happy for you. You're on the right track. But I know there are a lot of people who are new not only to programming but also computers as well. So this is how you go ahead and add files, in this case images, to your project, and that is the end of your first part of this specific project. In the next part, we'll go ahead and start with some actual HTML coding. All right. All right, so welcome to the second part of this specific chapter. Now, in the previous part, by now you should have a project folder, and you also have an idea on how to add files to your project, specifically images. Okay, now as we continue, one of the things I always tell students is that the best way to learn, and there are many ways to learn, there's no one best way, but the thing is, first start by copying everything that I'm doing. It is a video, so you can pause, retract, slow it down, all those things, right? And then try to replicate what I'm doing. And then once you are comfortable doing whatever it is that I am doing on the screen, go ahead and start experimenting. Now, your experimenting can be something very simple. Like for example, at first, start by using the images that we have given you. Maybe, but if you want to experiment, like start with something small, like, hey, you know what? Why don't you get your own images? Maybe walk around your neighborhood, take some photos, use that in your project. That's a very simple experimentation. Same thing with the practice project. Like in this project right now, I've told you to use 3 images. Maybe you should use 10 images. Nothing is stopping you from doing that. So like this. So when first step is try to replicate exactly what I'm doing, and then start experimenting. Come up with your own ideas. That's the best way to become a developer. Okay. So all right. So now in this second chapter, as always, I'm going to show you what you'll be doing at the end of this specific video, and then I'll also show you the code, and then I'm gonna, whenever possible, I'll try to write the code. But if sometimes it's too much code, it may take long for me to type everything, in which case I might even copy paste. So I'll do a combination of writing as well as explaining, and sometimes copy pasting the code whenever I'm illustrating something. So in the second part, let me go ahead and get the second part here. So I have my a new VS Code window is already open. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open the what you'll be building at the end of this video. So let me quickly go ahead and do that. So I'm going to click on open here, and then I'm going to go to my, as I mentioned, you'll be working with a lot of windows, a lot of folders. There's no escaping this. It is coding for you. That's the way it is. So I have my here. So let me bring up my screen again. You'll see here. This is what I'm talking about. Oh, that's the thing. On a Mac, I can't move this window. On Windows you could do that. But anyway, so this is what we'll be building at the end of this specific video. So this is part 2. It's there in the repository that we already shared with you. You can download it or clone it from GitHub, and there it is. And now, as always, open index.html, and then I'm just going to go ahead and say preview. Okay. So this here, we are doing a very, very small amount of change, but also I'm going to go in with some explanations also. So this is also going to be another simple chapter. In the beginning, we are on purpose. I'm keeping everything extremely simple. Some of you might be turned off by this, but I assure you things will get faster and more complex really fast in the upcoming chapter. So there you go. So what is happening? So all we need to do is, if I go to my practice folder, I see that the only thing extra here is there's one extra line. That's it. So that is all we are going to do in this video, but we are also trying to understand what else is happening. So let's jump in. So let me go ahead and keep this example chapter. But first, as I told you, Microsoft PowerPoint for some reason messes up my recording system. So I'm just going to go ahead and come out of the full screen here. Again, don't blame me, blame Microsoft Systems for that one. So let me go back here and bring up the, so I'm going to come here. I'm going to take this. This is what we're going to have at the end of this video. So I'm going to put this on my other monitor so I can look at it as I'm teaching you. Now I'm going to come back to my practice project here. So before we do that extra line of output, first let's understand what's happening here. Okay. So in a project, we have 3 things. Let me remove my face so you can see the entire screen. So in any project, you will usually have 3 files, which we already talked about: index.html, script.js, and style.css. Now in index.html, which is what this chapter is about, at the top of the page, you will find something called as a doc type HTML. Now this is not a computer science degree course. This is a practical course on programming. So I'm not going to go too deep into theory, but ultimately doc type, as the name implies, specifies to the browser. Now please understand, everything you build is eventually designed to run in a browser. So we have to communicate to the browser what is the format, what is the type of file, what is the type of HTML standard, and stuff like that we're using. So that is what this specific tag is doing. So if you want to know more about it, you can do your own research and stuff, but any discussion about some of these theoretical concepts, I'm going to skip because it is beyond the scope of this course. There you go. So next thing is, we also have to mention what is the language. Obviously EN stands for English, so that is what that does. And you'll notice something in HTML. You'll see here that sometimes some tags will open and close on the spot, whereas some tags will have an opening and also a closing. So you kind of get used to this over time. Okay, like the doc type is a open and close, self-closing we call it. Same thing here, self-closing. Whereas the head tag is not self-closing. You do have an opening and a closing tag. So again, this is something you just have to remember. Usually when you're typing, like for example, let me just show you the paragraph tag, which is something we need to add. So when you start typing, the computer will try to help you. And usually if something is supposed to have a closing, the computer will automatically do that for you. So you don't need to remember every time like, hey, does it have a closing tag? Does it not have? Because the computer will take care of it. Okay. One more thing I want to show you guys is sometimes you want to do multiple things. Okay. So let's say I want to have, right now I'm going to say like, hey, this is a paragraph. Okay, now what if I want to have 5 paragraphs? Now what I can do is I can go here, I can say, now you'll see some gray thing coming up there. That's the AI trying to help me. The AI thinks that's what I'm going to do next. So if you are also using AI, you might see that, but if you're not using it, then that is just the AI trying to help me. As I mentioned before, folks, the AI thing can really speed up your learning. So if possible, try to get the AI service. I am using something called as, here you can see it's called GitHub Go Pilot. That's what I am using. It is a paid service. I'm not advertising it. I'm just telling you that I use it. It really helps. It has really made my life better. So it may be worth looking into, but you don't need it for this course. But just letting you know, sometimes when you see something gray, it's just the AI trying to help me. Okay, so there you go. So let's say I want to have 5 paragraphs. So what I'll do, I'll say P, and then I'm going to say this is, before I can do 5 paragraphs, I need 5 paragraphs. So I'm going to say press enter. I'm going to say, again, the AI is trying to help me. There you go. And then there you go, paragraph tag, paragraph tag, paragraph tag. That didn't come right. Okay, there you go. So now I had to do that 5 times. But in VS Code, there is a system. I think it's called Emmet system or something. Okay, so if I want to do something which is repetitive, then instead of doing like this, and let me just delete that. So what I could do is I can say Alt, okay, and then I can click like this. Did you see that? Now there are 2 cursors. Let me show that to you again. Observe closely. So I have the cursor in the first line. I need 5 lines, so I'm just going to press enter 5 times. And then I'm going to come back here and I'm going to say press and hold the Alt key. I think it's the same key on both Windows and Mac. And I'm just going to press this 5 times. Okay, so now I have 5 cursors. So now if I say spacebar, look at that. All the 5 cursors are moving at the same time. Now I want the first 2 cursors to be in the same line as the remaining 3 cursors. So I'm going to press Alt, remove this one, remove that one. Oh, the whole thing went away. Let me try it again. So it takes a bit of practice. So there you go. 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 cursors. So now I can type on 5 different lines. So I'm going to say paragraph tag. Look at that. And I can type on all 5 lines. Typing on all 5 lines. It's a very simple trick. Okay, it takes some getting used to. So, but there you go. So whenever you want to type, you want to do some multiple line things, please don't forget to use the Alt key and the Emmet system. Another way you can use it, like let's say, for example, I don't want the last 2 things to say typing on all 5 lines. So what I could do is, again, I can just remove it, and then I'm going to say Alt, and then I'm going to select this, and then I'm going to go here. I'm going to say changing the last 2 lines simultaneously using Emmet. I think it's called Emmet system. What it's called, is really irrelevant. This feature is there in VS Code. It really helps you, especially in web development. And because a lot of time you're repeating a lot of same lines again and again. Very useful, very useful. So don't forget to use this feature. Okay. So now coming back, so head tag is where you put head related items in any web page. So usually a HTML page will have a head section, and then it will have a body section. So head section is where we put tags such as the meta tags, which gives some meta information. You have probably heard of the word meta. Meta usually means something that is related to something, but it doesn't actually appear in the output. So you have a tag, it's this char set. is called character set. In programming, we have something called as character encoding. So here we are using the encoding called as UTF-8. So again, this is not a theory course. So if you are interested to find out about encoding, hopefully you can go online and learn more about it. Same thing, we have something called a viewport. Viewport is the the window where the output shows up. We have to mention the width, the device width and scale and stuff like that. Finally, the title is the title. You'll see here what title, like for example, if I look in the top right corner here, if I go ahead and change this, changing the title, you'll see that the title is changing. So that's what the title does. Okay, and the next tag is the link tag, which can be used to link a lot of things, but right now our priority is to link the style sheet. So you have a style sheet called styles.css. So that's what we are doing here. Oh, the spelling is a little bit wrong, so let me go ahead and change that to style.css. But right now we don't have any css, it's actually empty. So it won't have any effect, but it's good to know these things ahead of time because we'll be doing some css in upcoming videos. So that's what is happening in the head section. Now let's move on to the body section quickly. The body section is where you write the bulk of your code. So whatever is there in your body, that is going to come in your output. So let's see here, the main tag is used to indicate the main content. Now, for example, there are specific tags which are useful. You don't have to use many of these tags. You can actually get the same output without the main tag. So if I want to, I can, again, I'm going to just go ahead and delete these things. See, there you go. So I can get rid of this main tag and the output is still pretty much the same. But there are some conventions, there are some standard that people follow. So we are following the same standards here. So I'm going to use the main tag to put all the main content. We have other things like the header tag, the footer tag, which are useful for header and footer information. So there you go. That's what the main tag is. It helps you organize things, like a main content or something. And then let me remove this. Yeah, there you go. So now the next tag is here is the h1 tag. H1 tag is the header tag, which you can see here. It gives you like really big text. Whereas the h2 tag is like the same big text but slightly smaller. And we can continue this trend. I can have another tag called h3 tag, which is again like bold, but and you can see as I'm typing, the output comes on the right side. That is being done by the preview extension. So bold stuff but smaller than h2. So there you go. That's the h1, h2 and h3 tag. And of course the paragraph tag is the paragraph tag, which shows all these things. So let's compare what we have done with our example output. So let me bring my example, our target for this video, and I look at the output. So there you go. So we have understood what these different tags mean, what are opening, self-closing and things like that. And also we were supposed to use a paragraph. So it looks identical, but it's not similar, but not identical. So let's make them identical. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this here. I just want this text. So I'm going to just copy this. As I said, nothing wrong in copying. So I don't want this extra line here. So I don't want to delete it. So I'm just going to comment it. Okay, so it's gone. If you want to comment on the Mac, it's command slash. On Windows, it is control slash. So there you go. So that's the output, looking a little bit similar. So now I just want one sentence called see more photos in our gallery. So again, I'm going to take this first paragraph and I'm going to change this to this. Oh, sorry. Hold on. I think I didn't copy it properly. Well, let me just do that again. Oh, there's no copy option in this one. So I'm going to have to go to Firefox. Okay, so I'm going to go to Firefox. I want, 1 second. I'm going to take this line from the project here. There you go. Okay, just carefully copy. If you want, you can type it as well. Okay, and what I want is I don't need this anymore, so I'm going to close this. So I'll come back to my practice project and I'm going to put this here. There you go. And I don't want these extra lines. You can either delete it or comment it. I'm just going to comment it. So there you go. So I look at my practice project. This is what you're also practicing with me. And I look at my target folder and they both have identical outputs. And that is the end of this chapter. So once again, as I keep reminding my students, please try to replicate everything that I did in the video. And then before you move on to the next chapter, try to remix it. Like I've shown you using two types of H1 tag. Go ahead and use all the H1 tags, H1, H2, H3, H4, H5. And then of course, paragraph. I have shown you one. I actually had many paragraph, but I kind of commented them. So you can try different paragraphs, try different sentences, and so on and so forth. And if you're really curious, you can go online, or if you have the AI enabled, you can find out what is this doc type, what is this character encoding, what is it UTF-8, what is this viewport, and stuff like that. Now, discussing those things is beyond the scope of our course, but there is nothing to stopping you from learning all these things and simply becoming a better developer. Okay, so there you go, folks. That's end of part 1 of this specific chapter. I'll see you guys in the next part. Hello, and welcome to the next part in our front-end course. And in this chapter, okay, so once again, I have to go ahead and let me just get back to my PowerPoint. Now, as I mentioned, for some reason on the Mac, when I am using the second monitor, the PowerPoint takes over both the monitors, not allowing me to do the things that I need to do. So I'm just going to come back here, and I'm going to come out of the full screen thing here. Okay, there you go. So this is what we did in the previous chapter. In the previous chapter, we went ahead and we were able to add files, which is a very, very important step. Okay, so you need to know how to add files, images and things like that. So there you go. That's something you will have to do. We did that part. So now let's move on to the next step, which is using the img, the image tag. Okay, so that is the next thing that I'm going to show you today. So this is what we have accomplished in the previous chapter. This is what you had some basic tags, how to use the paragraph tag, how to use the h2 tag. So this is what we have done till the previous video. So now today what I'm going to show you is we'll do something like this. Let me remove myself from the my face here so that you can see the whole thing. So there you go. This is what you'll be building. The big difference, of course, you can see that we are using the image and we are also adding a tag. Okay, see, the img tag is useful for showing images, obviously, that's what it does. And then after that, we are also going to learn how to use the a tag, which is useful for showing links. So once again, I am going very, very slow because this course is meant for first-time programmers, and I always believe as a teacher, when you're learning something, you must have patience, and there is everything to lose by rushing through things and then not giving enough attention to concepts, but you have everything to gain by going slow, and so on and so let's get back to this one here. So I'm gonna, so this is what we're gonna build. Let me just put that on Firefox. Okay, I did copy the link. There you go. This is what I'm going to show you. You'll see here that there's an image. It looks really, really big. We'll fix that. And then you'll see at the bottom there's a small link. Okay, if I click on this link, I always like to open links in a new tab. It opens to our company website, Tech Now Institute. So there you go. So two things you'll be learning in this chapter, and we are going a little slow on purpose. Okay, so this is what, let me go ahead and come back to my VS Code. So this is what we are trying to achieve. So I'm going to put this on my other monitor, okay, so that I can use it as a reference as I am teaching you. And this is the project that we are working on from the previous chapter. So this is all the stuff you have. So what I'll do here is, okay, now remember, this is the practice folder. So hopefully you already know how to create practice folders and everything, right? So let me close this output for now. And what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and delete all these extra things. Okay, so in the previous video, I told you to keep it. It's fine. You had your enough practice. Let's go ahead and get rid of it. So remove that. Okay, comments are useful, but sometimes comments can be distracting, especially if you already learned everything that you can learn from them. So there you go. All right. One more thing I want to mention is that you will see that whenever I'm coding, I do like indentation. So you'll see like this one is in the first, you can see like a gray line here, and then this one is like one tab space away from the first line of the, first line, and then this is like one more tab space. So I'm just going to type that here, that is called indentation, usually one tab space. Okay, now we are using this extension called Prettier. I think I showed that to you in the earlier this one. So there you go. I'm already using this extension called Prettier, which will automatically arrange things for you. So it is a good idea for you to install it. However, I don't want to become too dependent. I mean, I did mention that you must be able to use external tools, online searches, online references, online things, and of course AI and all those things. So it's always good to take help from these things, but there are some things which are basic enough that I expect the developer to be able to do it on their own. So there you go. So these tab things, I do it myself. So you may have noticed, like whenever I write a line of code, I always make sure I maintain this indentation on my own. Okay, so you keep an eye on that and try to practice the same thing. I've seen some people, what they do is, let me just show you. Let me create another file here, like extra file.html, just to show you what some people do. Please don't do that. That's what I'm trying to say. So let's say if this is the code, I've seen what some people do is they put everything in a single line. It looks like this. Yeah, I'm just going to show you right now. So like this, everything in a single line, like this. Now let me just show this to you side by side. Look at that. So this is how some people write code, and this is how normally I write code, and how you're expected to write the code. Now it's a very simple difference. Like, okay, so this one still is readable with all the colors and everything, but after a while, now please understand that this is only 13 lines. Already it's beginning to confuse me. Whereas here, because everything is organized with indentation, it is more readable. And I am telling you, even in a simple project, you can have hundreds and hundreds of lines. And if you don't follow indentation, I'm telling you, it will increase the time it takes for you to solve problems. You may have heard, online, you go online, there are a lot of developer memes. There are a lot of memes about bug fixing and discovering bugs and making new bugs, avoiding mistakes and stuff like that. All those memes are true. So if there is anything you can do from day one to avoid wasting time, then this is one of those things. Indentation. It takes a bit of practice, for me, because I've been coding from a young age. It's become second nature to me. So I do the indentation without even thinking about it, like unconsciously. But you will have to do it consciously until it becomes like really merges into your muscle memory. So please focus on indentation. Very, very important. Now, of course, these extensions and other things will help you, but they don't always work. Like right now, I have the extension, but you can see here that everything is still like the extension is not really doing anything. I'm sure there's a shortcut or something to force it to do some formatting, but I don't want to depend on it so much. Okay, so indentation, guys, please go ahead and try to focus on that. Right then, so let's forget about that extra file. Let's close all these things. Command W when you want to close something, Command W. Okay, so this is what I have from the end of the previous chapter. So now what I want to do is I want to start using the img tag. Okay, now obviously AI is going to try to help me, and of course, even if you don't have AI, the VS Code already will try to help you with closing and opening. So I'm going to say img. Okay, and then I'm just making sure I have everything in the right place. There you go. So it is a self-closing tag. It doesn't have anything. So here, what we need is, now if you look at the output, let me just get the output here. Make this a little bit bigger. There you go. Nothing has come yet because there is nothing to show. Okay, but there's no error or anything like that. So first thing is, for any image, what you need is the source, src. Okay, so now you'll notice that we already have many images from the previous chapter. Now this is why I made you learn how to put images in the project. Now if you want to, you can use images which are online as well and stuff like that. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to say src. Now you'll see again, this is not AI, just VS Code trying to help you. So source, and then what I'll do is I want to use the flower photo. So I'm going to start typing and the computer will try to help me. Okay, there's a photo called flower, and there it is. That's all it is. Okay, you can see the image is already here, right? So it is a little big. We'll worry about that later. In fact, in a few minutes, I'll try to solve it myself. Okay, next thing is the image tag also has something called as a alt attribute. Now these things, they are called attributes. Now something you have to understand is whenever you want to learn more, this is something you'll see as the course progresses. See, web programming, it has all these HTML tags, and all these tags have so many attributes. Let me just quickly do something for you. Let me go to my Firefox, and I'm just going to say MDN. I'll be using this sometimes. You also use it. MDN, Mozilla Developer Network, and I'm going to say IMG tag. Okay, so now I'm getting the there you go. So I'm getting this here, and I'm going to just open this in a new tab, and there you go. So this is the IMG tag. Okay, and then you can see how the IMG tag works. So whenever I am working on something, whenever I want to know more, I usually come to the MDN website. You may also want to do that because that is like an internationally recognized, recommended learning resource for developers. So there you go. It has so many attributes. Okay, so look at this. There's so many attributes. These are all attributes. So every thing in programming has extra features. This is why I keep telling people, don't try to buy hard things. Okay, learn how to find the information online, or there it is. That's the attribute we are using, the source attribute. So like this, look at that. It's a very long list. There is no possible way you could just remember everything. Okay, so but you can learn how to find extra information, which is far more reliable than just by hearting or mugging up everything. So let's come back here. So I have the image tag. I'm going to use the alt attribute. Alt attribute is useful when you have to give like an image description. So this is like an image of a flower. So I'm just going to type image of a flower. Okay, as always, the text is going away. You can see here. So I don't want this to go away like this. Makes coding difficult. So I'm going to say alt Z. There you go. I'm going to say it again, alt Z. If you do that, it enables text wrapping. Very useful when you're coding. If you don't do alt Z or text wrapping, then you'll get this horizontal bar, then you have to keep scrolling every time you're coding. It's very annoying. So alt Z for text wrapping. So that is your image tag with the alt attribute. Alt attribute is important because it gives you like a description of the image, which is useful in cases where the image is gone or something. Like for example, right now, let me go ahead and do one thing. I will just make a spelling mistake on purpose. Now look at that. Did you see that? It says that an image is supposed to come, but the image is broken or image is not available or something. But at least we have a description. So this is the main purpose of an alt attribute. So usually, these are like common attributes, nothing fancy. So when you are using an image, it's always a good idea to put the alt, because for any number of reasons, the image may not work. So this is like getting ready for problems and issues and stuff like that. So there you go. So now I'm going to remove the spelling mistake, and the image is back. So that is the image tag. Now, you know what? Image is looking a little bit big, so there must be a way to make it smaller. Now there are better ways to do this, but I'm gonna just show you a very simple way of doing it now. But more importantly, I'm not gonna just give you the solution. Now I have the solution. Actually, it's not even there in my other example code. So what can I do here? There are a couple of ways I can go about this, but you know what? I'm gonna make my life a little bit simple. I'm just gonna go here to AI, and I'm just gonna say make image smaller. I'm just gonna ask my AI, make image smaller. Just to give you a demonstration of how AI might help you in your programming. So there you go. The AI is trying to tell me that there is something called as the width and the height attribute. And let's say if you don't have AI, what do I do? What do I do? So I can go back to my Firefox, and I go here, and here I can ask for width. There it is. Use the width and the height to change the size of the image. So there you go. That is something you can do. So, if it's not like you have to have AI or something. If you don't have AI, then you can always find the information online, because the AI is simply getting this information from the internet and giving it to you anyway. So there you go. So this is what I'm looking at. So I'm going to just take this example solution given by AI. And what I do is, whenever I'm practicing code, I always create a file called scratchpad.md. Okay. And then, this is useful to put things like this. So let's look at this here. So I'm going to open this on the right side as well. As I told you, split window, very, very useful. Always use split window when you can. Okay. And then now what it says is after alt, I can just say width equals 200. So I'll come back here and I'm going to say, I'll get my output. So I'm going to say width equals 200. There it is. Right now that's small enough. So normally the image, the flower image is like this big, but I managed to make it this small. Now, if you think 200 is too small, you can experiment. You can make it 300. You can make it 400, 500. Okay, I'm happy with 600. And there's another thing I keep telling all the time. So experiment, try it, because 600 works for me on my monitor, but on your monitor you might like 800 or 1000, or you might want to keep it smaller. It's really up to you. But this is just a primitive way of managing size. There are better ways of dealing with images, making them responsive. We will come to that much later in the course. So there you go, folks. So let's go ahead and check it out, how it looks in Firefox. Okay, now you know already how it looks, but still I always want to check and make sure things look okay. Oh, still not updated. Maybe I didn't save it. Hold on. So let me just save it. It's still not. Oh, this is a different option. Oh, sorry. Oh, let me just copy this. That's a different one. There you go. See? So the image is working, it looking small enough, so it looks nice. And that's how you use the image tag. So let's move on to the next one, which is the A tag. The A tag is useful for links and such things. So let me go back here and I am going to say, now the link can be for anything. Okay, right now in my example, I had linked to our tutoring website, but here, let me try something different. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Firefox, and let me try to find, let's say, Wikipedia. Let's go to Wikipedia. Pandas. Pandas are cool, pandas are nice. The giant panda. There you go. So this is the link. So let's say I want to link to this panda website for some reason. And just to keep things light and hearty. So there it is. I get this link. I'm gonna keep it open for now. I'll come back to my project, and what I'll do is, once again, I'm gonna say A. Okay, and then the AI is trying to help me. I'm just gonna ignore it for now, and then I'm gonna, this has open and closing tag. So there you go. That's the A tag. You won't see anything yet because it doesn't have anything. So here I'm going to say I want to put a title. Okay, so I'm going to come back here. I'm going to copy. Okay, so there you go. And now, so if I scroll down, you'll see here that the title for the link is coming here. Okay, now that's not where maybe you want the link. So if you want to make it look a little bit better, you can put the link here in the top, right? So giant panda. Okay, and now what I'll do is I'll go back inside the opening tag, and I'm going to say href, again attribute, and here I can put the link. You can see the moment I put href, the text changed. Just keep an eye on the right side. I'm gonna just remove the href attribute. Look at that. It just looked like text, but the moment I put href, it became like a link. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll go back to my Firefox, and I'm going to copy this link. It can be any link, it can be any link that you're trying to link. And I'm going to put this link here. And now if I click on this, it opens up. Okay, and then if I click on this one, it takes me to the giant panda. Right, so let's try that on Firefox. I think it opened on Safari. That's I'm on the Mac. The default browser is Safari. So let's go here. This is our project. Reload it, and then I have giant panda. I click on it, and there you go. The link works. Very, very straightforward. Very, very simple. Very, very straightforward. So there you go, folks. That is how you go ahead and use the img tag for showing images. And as a bonus, I also showed you how to reduce the size, and you can, and of course the main thing here is I was able to use AI, but I was also able to use the online references, MDN. And every now and then I'll jump into MDN. It is a well-known, recommended, highly informative resource for any developer, especially a new developer. But then again, as I mentioned, I'm not a big fan of memorizing things. So even today, after more than 25 or 20 plus years of coding, whenever I'm working on a project, I always like to avoid making mistakes. I don't want to like just jump and rush into things. So whenever I'm working on a project, I always take a few seconds to go there and verify things, because today I can spend 10 minutes avoiding mistakes so that I can save hours and hours of headache in the future. And this is the same approach to programming I want you to bring to the table. Learn slowly, code slowly, refer as much as possible, use online references. If you have AI access, take help from AI, but make sure you go slow. And I promise you that 10 minutes extra, 20 minutes extra you spend today will save you hours and hours of headache tomorrow and make you a very patient and efficient developer. Okay, don't be in a rush is what I'm going to say. But anyway, that is what I have for you in this specific part. We learned how to use the img tag and the a tag, and then we'll move on to the next chapter then. Thank you. Hello and welcome to the next chapter of our basic HTML videos here. Now, in this chapter, let me quickly bring up what you'll be building at the end of this specific part. So this is what you'll be learning how to build. Let me just close this here. So you will learn how to use the section tag, which is a, oh, wait, are you able to see the screen? No. Oh, there you go. Okay, so in this one, what you learn is you learn how to use the section tag. Section tag is a tag that is very useful to divide your HTML page into different sections, like the name implies. And then you'll also learn how to sort of put a link in the middle of a sentence. Let me quickly bring up the preview here. So there you can see that before, the link was just a link, it didn't have anything before or after that. But in this chapter, you will learn, in this part, you will learn how to make a link in the middle of a sentence. So you learn that too. Images, you already saw that, right? And then you also learn how to build a very simple list. You can see here there's a very simple list. Okay, this one is called an unordered list, which means it doesn't have any numbering. It's just dots, like bullet points. And then if you scroll down a little bit more, you'll see that there's a list with some numbers automatically added to it. So that's called an ordered list. Okay, and that one. And you'll also learn how to add like a simple caption to your image. That's the fig caption image. There's also a figure tag. Now again, these are all like extra tags that do the same thing that other tags do, but with some extra attributes and features. So this is another thing I keep mentioning in all of my videos. There are simply too many things for any developer to remember. So again and again, I'm telling you, be aware that there are these things, but don't worry too much if you're not able to remember all the tags. That is why you have your notes. That is why you have online references, example code, and all those things. It is fine if you can't remember all these things. It's only like the sixth or seventh or eighth video, and there are so many things stacking up. So you don't have to by heart all these things. I just want to emphasize that again and again, and I'll keep reminding you about this, okay? Because I've seen some students who always come up to me and they're like, so how do I just remember all these things? Just too much. The solution is don't. Just be aware that these things are there, and then you can just locate it or find it from external resources. It is totally okay. All right. Okay. So you're going to learn how to use the figure tag and the lists, and these are the main things that you'll be learning in this chapter. Let's quickly put that in our PowerPoint slide as well. Okay. So what you'll be doing is you'll be learning how to use the section tag. Okay. You'll be learning how to use the figure tag, and the main thing is you'll also learn how to use some lists and some extra features which are part of these main tags. So let's go ahead and do that. As usual, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly put this one on my other monitor. As I told you, 2 monitors. Whenever I'm looking here, that means I'm just making sure that I'm not giving you any wrong information. Okay, even if I remember these things, I still like to refer. Again, you also, when you're learning, when you're coding, no harm, no shame in looking up and getting your code right. Okay, and this is our project from the previous part. So this much you should already have. Okay, so you should already have this running on your computer from the previous part. Okay, so please make sure that before you come to the next chapter, next video, next part, you have already confidently practiced and finished the previous chapter code. Okay, all right, so this is what we managed in the previous chapter. So now let's go ahead and start using all these new tags in this one. So first thing is I'm gonna go ahead and try to get sections. Let me see how many sections I have to put here. So I have one, two sections. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm gonna keep the old code as it is. Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and say section. Okay, there you go, two sections. So there it is. I wanted two sections because that is what I have in my example project. So that is what I'm going to do. So let me focus on the first section. Okay, now the first section, what am I doing here? The first section is essentially, oh, hold on. One, two, yeah, two sections. Now the first section is really just the previous code. So I'm just gonna go here, Command X or Control X on the Windows, Command X, and I'm going to put this in the section. Now once again, notice how everything is indented, indentation that I talked about. So make sure everything is indented. Try to eliminate blank spaces unless you want it. Otherwise just remove the blank spaces. Just make sure your code looks clean. Again, there is something I really want to emphasize as a tutor. Please make sure your code is readable, because even if you end up working in a small company like a startup or something, you will have at least one more developer in your team, or you'll have at least one manager or somebody who is working with you. So if you make your code readable, then they will understand what you're trying to do. And most of the time you will be working in a team, so you have to make sure that other people can understand what you're typing and what you're coding. One reason to do that is keep your code clean, indented, and all that. Okay, so right, coming back. So there you go. I have the first section filled up. The only big difference before and now is that I want to have the link before and after a sentence. So what I'll do is I'll come here. I have the href here. So what I can do is I'm just going to make some space and I'll open a p tag and close it. And then I'll say to learn about. Okay, and then I'm gonna come back here. See what I'm doing here? I'm just very carefully. Now to do this, it's Command Shift right. These are all shortcuts. I think on Windows it's Control Shift right. So I'm gonna just cut this, Command X. I'm going to put this here. See, and I want an additional sentence. So I'm gonna say visit to learn about giant panda. And I'm just going to type something and have fun knowing about these cute animals. There you go. That's it. So you essentially what I did was I took a new paragraph tag and then typed whatever I wanted. And in the middle of it, I simply moved my a tag. So that is how you get a link in the middle of a sentence. Okay, so that was the main thing I want to show you in this part as far as putting the a tag and the p tag. So this is like nesting. So you have the p tag and the a tag is going inside it. As always, a lot of these things look very, very simple for some learners, but there are some people who will try to take a while to learn this. So let's go slow here again. Now the next thing is, I think that's all there is to it. In the first section I was supposed to have a title. I've got the title here. I have two titles. Oh no, this is the title for the photo, so that's fine. And then I'm supposed to have a paragraph tag with a link. I put that. I was supposed to show an image. The image is showing, so that's good. That is section number 1. So that is taken care of. Now let's move on to the second section. See, this is why we do sections. It allows you to go ahead and divide your web page into different things. Now I'll show you something like this section. If I want to, I can get rid of it. Okay, I'm just going to use that emit system I taught you guys. So let me select this tags here and then I'm just going to delete it. And you can see on the right side, it doesn't actually affect your output. Your output looks essentially the same, but yet sections, and you learn more things like that in the future. Maybe not in this course because we are only teaching the basics, but there are many ways to divide your web page. It's mostly for organization and other manipulations. But I do want to keep the section because you should know it. Everything we have in the syllabus, every code I've put here, it's been a lot of thought has gone into it. So yes, you should know about section. So let me bring it back, Command Z, and section is back. It doesn't really affect your output, but it is required for future learning purposes. So that is the first section done. Let's move on to the second section. In the second section, I'm just making sure I'm on the right track here. I'm supposed to show you two things. Well, essentially it's one thing, but two types. I have to show you how to use a list. I want to show you how to use a list with bullet points, which is like an unordered list, and then a list which is like an ordered list. So that is what I really should be doing. So let me go ahead, and here once again, I want a title. Now for a title, I can use a p tag or a h1 tag. So let me start with a h1 tag. So I'm going to say h1 list of let's say list of programming learning, right? That's what we are doing here. That's the first type of list. And I want to do the second list simultaneously. And if I want, I can put that in a separate section if I want, or I can just put it here. So I'm going to stick to what I'm doing right now. So I'm going to say another h1 tag, list of things in the sky, just something random, so there you go. So I want two lists. So one is a list of programming learning, and another one is a list of things in the sky. So here first I want to show unordered list. If I want to, I can add a comment. So here I can just say here I am showing unordered list. Now this is a comment. So how do you do it? You select the whole thing, Command Shift, and then the right arrow key, and then Command /. See, that is a comment. Always good to have some comments in the mix. So here also, again, I'm going to say here I am showing an ordered list. There you go. Simple comment. Okay. Always good to have some comments. And then what I'll do is I'll go here. I'll open an unordered list. So that's going to be UL. You can see the AI is trying to help me. So UL. And then here I'm going to say ordered list. So I'm going to say OL. So these things, these type of HTML tags, they do have an opening and closing. It does make a difference. So let me go back to the unordered list. Now list of programming learning, again, the AI is trying to help me, but I'm going to type it, right? So I'm going to say, you need to learn HTML. You need to learn CSS. You need to learn JavaScript. These are the main things. These are the things we're trying to teach you. Also, of course, Bootstrap. How can I forget that? Bootstrap. Okay, there you go. So you can see here on the right side, I'm going to scroll down a little bit. You can see it's an unordered list because you're getting like a bullet point. Obviously, if you don't like bullet points, you can change the change it to something else. But we are not doing those advanced things yet, or not at all in this course. So this is just a foundational course. So there you go. So I have a simple unordered list. So there are no numbers or anything. It's just simple bullet points. And the list is working. And it's in a separate section as well. So let's go on and do an ordered list, which means ordered list means I'm going to see some numbers. Okay. So here I'm going to say list of things in the sky. What do you see in the sky? Like right now I'm looking outside my window here. I can see the sun, of course. I can see some pigeons, near our apartment, we have like a small pigeon population. They keep coming, sitting near our windows and everything. So I'm going to just say pigeons. They do come, and sometimes they'll just sit in front of the window and all. We put some rice and stuff like that. So pigeons, clouds, obviously. All right, airplanes, airplanes, about 10 kilometers from here, there's an airport. So sometimes we see airplanes flying around. So I'm going to just put that as well. These are the things I see in the sky from where I'm sitting. So there you go, list of things in the sky. Now look at this. At the end, it seems like it's getting cramped. So what I'll do is I'll put like a h1 tag just to have some extra space. Just putting this here for an extra space. Okay. Just to have some extra space in the bottom. So it doesn't look like it's crushed at the end. So there you go. So you can see, as we saw before in this chapter, I want to show you how to use a link in the middle of a sentence. We've done that. The image was already there from before, but the important thing is I was able to move everything from the previous part into a section. Very useful in organizing things. Again, I created another section, and I've shown you how to do a ordered list here and how to do an unordered list. Let me just make sure that I've covered everything I want to show you. Oh, I was supposed to show you how to use the figure tag. So let me do one thing. Let me come here. Let me open another section for that. Okay. And then here I'm going to use the figure tag, which is a better way to show images. Okay. So open and close. The figure tag, the main thing is you have two main things. You again, the AI is trying to help me. You have the image, and then you have a caption for the image. So first step, I'm going to put the image tag. Now the good thing is I already have a image code. Another thing I like to do when I'm coding is if I've already coded something, okay, if I've already coded something, then I like to go ahead and reuse that code. Okay, copy paste it. Why? Because I've already spent a certain amount of effort to get something, so the effort of accuracy is already there. So if you're repeating the same thing, you shouldn't have to type it again. So I favor copy pasting, especially when I'm repeating the same thing again and again. So I'm going to just copy this image tag. I'm just going to dump this. Now I want a different image, obviously, so I'm going to just go here, delete the source. Now you know why we have multiple images, because sometimes you may want to use more than one image and you don't want to show the same image. It doesn't look cool. So I'm going to put the cactus thing. All the photos I'm showing here, they're all taken by me, and I'm actually a photographer. I have a hobby. I have a photo studio. So these are all photos taken by me in my travels, and sometimes I know these are like planned and all that. So there you go. So I have another image here. So what I want to do is I want to give this image a small caption. But before that, I'm going to add a h1 tag for this also, showcasing the cactus, like a movie, showcasing the cactus. Okay, so there you go. There it is. And then I want to add a caption to it. So here I'm going to say, again, the AI is trying to help me, but I'm just going to say fig caption, photo of cactus. I took this photo many years ago at a government park. So I'm gonna just say photo of cactus with stones at the park, and there you go. That is the caption of the image, and that's the last thing I want to show. Image. Oh, I need to update the alt as well. Image of a cactus. So there you go. Okay, so there it is. That's what you have. Let's quickly open this in our Firefox just to see how it looks in your output. So I'm going to go back here. I'll open this, and there it is. So I have the link, I have the image, and I have this first list, I have the second list, and finally I have the image with a caption. And just to avoid that, no, I don't want the content to get crushed at the end, so I just added an extra title here just to make things simple. There you go, my dear students. So that is the next part. That is the next thing I want to teach you guys. So again, all of this will sound very simple for some students, and obviously there'll always be some fast learners. If you're one of them, I'm happy for you, but at the same time, don't worry if you're taking a little bit longer to learn all these things. As always, practice before going to the next chapter. Repeat, recycle, and experiment. Like as I keep saying, I have one list. Why don't you make three lists? My list has 3 items. You can have 10 items in your list. Just go crazy with it. Experiment, and only when you're sure. And also, please do not worry if you keep forgetting the tags. It happens to me all the time, even after like some 20 plus years of coding. So please go ahead, take your time. Don't hesitate to use references and look at example code. Okay, all right. Hello and welcome to the next part in our basic HTML series here. So now in this specific chapter, now we are going to continue learning more basic tags. So let me just quickly bring up what you'll be building at the end of this video. So there you go. This is what you're going to learn. The main thing here from the previous part is you'll be adding another section. We already saw the tag before. You'll be learning about the form tag, and also there is something called as labels. You learn how to add legends, and then of course you learn how to use the field set tag. You learn something about IDs and stuff like that. The main thing I want to say here is that I myself, whenever you're building a web app, you will know already by now that just by knowing the basics of what we are teaching here. It won't automatically make you a developer. You can still build some things, but the thing is today, I mean, this was like the way to build things, say 20 years ago, like when I was a student. But now, of course, everything has become really advanced, and you whenever you build a web app, you'll eventually have to learn advanced frameworks like React.js or Angular or Flutter and things like that. Now, though these advanced libraries, they come with their own far better ways of collecting data and processing it and things like that. So form is like a very bare bones, what I'm trying to show you here, forms. And with this project here, let me just quickly open the preview, and you'll see here there's like a very, very simple form at the end of this page. I'm gonna try to make this bigger. There you go. So you can see it's a very simple form, and it has some buttons and everything. You'll definitely be using buttons and check boxes and stuff like that. Those things are definitely useful. The form concept is also useful, but at the same time, I want to impress upon you that when you start using frameworks and things like that, you will have much different way of collecting and processing data. So understanding about forms is strictly almost like just something it's good to know. Okay, now I have made sure that in this course, I've given you only the bare essentials, and I've tried to avoid superfluous things when I can. So in many ways, a lot of times when I'm building a web app, I don't even use the form tag. I use other ways to collect data and process it. But still, a form tag is one of those things that you might end up using it in some frameworks, or you might not use it at all, but still it's something that you should know as a beginner developer. So there you go. It's strictly something good to know, but you should know. I just want to put that out there before I explain to you the code and everything. So let's get back to it then. So this is what we are going to be doing. In this part, I'll be showing you how to use a simple form. So as always, let me go ahead and move this to my other monitor here, so I can use it as a reference as I'm teaching and so on. And we have our project. So let me bring up the project, the practice folder that I have been using since the beginning of this specific HTML tag videos. So there you go. Let me just bring it here. There you go. Now this is what we had at the end of the previous part. So we learned how to use list, images, and all that. It's looking good so far. So let's go ahead and start learning the form tag and related concepts to it. So I have here, once again, I'm going to start by adding a new section. Okay, so there you go, just dividing the whole page into different sections. Okay, and let's start with the title. So I'm going to use h1. I'm going to say let's build a simple form. Okay, so I have that here. I have the tag here. Okay, next what I'll do is I want to start out with the form tag. So again, the AI is trying to help you. The AI knows what I'm trying to do, so it's fine. Now here there's a little bit of complex things going on, so I want to make sure here. So let's go ahead and open the form tag and close it. As always, now this is how I like to type code. I always like to just put the tags and then slowly add the attributes one at a time. I don't like to just put everything out there immediately. Okay, so then in the form thing, what I'll do is a form always has something called as an action attribute, just like how the image has the source attribute, it has an action attribute. Now I'm going to speak a little bit about this action attribute now here. Okay, so what really happens is, okay, now whenever you have a form, the whole idea behind a form, I think I'm just gonna make myself full here. The whole idea behind a form is to take data from the user, either as an input box or check boxes or radio buttons, any way you want to collect data from the user of the website, and then take that data and send it to the server. Okay, so that is really what the action portion of the form tag does. It takes the data, and that is where you mention the destination server where you're collecting the data. Now, this is just a beginner course, of course. So we will not have any actual backend server. Now, these are things you will do probably in another course. And as I mentioned, the way we process data is very different with modern frameworks, but still that is what the action does. So right now I don't have any backend server. It is beyond the scope of this course. So what I'll do is I can put whatever I want. I can just put Wikipedia. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. So what I'll do is I'll scroll up here. I have the Wikipedia link. I'm just going to put it here just for the sake of completion. But in reality, in a real form, you would actually have a destination server which should be mentioned in the form section. Okay, now this is the target, this is the destination. So when we click on the submit button, there's going to be a submit button. It will come in a few minutes. When the user hits the submit button, whatever data was captured in the form, like a form, it's a form, it has data, and that is sent to the destination server. So this action is supposed to point at a destination. So we don't have an actual server right now. It's beyond the scope of this training, but it's for you to know that's what it really happens. So let's go ahead and start by putting. Now this is really where I want to make sure I'm looking at the example code. So the first thing is we do have what is called as a field set tag. Now remember, some of these things are extra, like the section tag. If you don't use it, it's fine. Your web page will still work. But still, in a form, we use the field set tag as a way to group different input sections. Again, it's a matter of organization, and it also does help you when you are building advanced forms and stuff like that. So I have a field sets tag. In the first field tag, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and collect some data using radio buttons. Okay, there are many different ways of taking input. Radio buttons is like, you'll see in a minute. You already saw it in the final output. So it's like literally radio buttons where you can select what you want. So let's go ahead and add some radio buttons here. So here I'm just going to make sure. Now there is something called a legend. Like legend is like a h1 tag for taking input. So here I'm going to say select some options on how to let's see, I'm just trying to come up with an example on the fly. I don't want to use the same example from this one. Select some options for breakfast. It is morning here in India, so I'm just going to make it select some options for breakfast. Okay, that's what I'm thinking right now. I'm thinking of breakfast. I already had my breakfast, but still. So you can see it's almost like a h1 tag for the input. It adds like a border and stuff like that. And then what I want to do is I want to go ahead, and here I'm going to go ahead and put a input. Let's do that right now. Okay, so I'm going to say label. Okay, there you go. And there it is, label for here I'm going to say breakfast. I'm going to say sandwich. Okay, and then that's the label, and then I'm going to say, and it's okay if I can just use the same label for the for value and the sandwich value. So that's the label portion. Okay, and then I want another radio button, so I'm going to put another label here. I'm going to say label for another breakfast could be coffee. I'll take the AI suggestion, it's fine. So coffee, double cuts, and here I'm going to say coffee. Now I am typing all the code here. If I want to, I can just use the AI suggestion, but I'm trying to teach you here, so I'm going to go ahead and type as much as I can and avoid taking any help from AI for now. So label for sandwich, label for coffee. So I have those things here. Next, for these labels, I want to actually do the inputting. So here I want to use the check box. So let's go ahead and try to say input tag. Okay, so this is useful whenever you're trying to take some input. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to use let's say the radio type. So I'm going to say type, and you can see there are different types. It's actually a pretty long list, right? This is not AI, it's just VS Code trying to help me. So what I want to do is I want to use the radio option. There you go. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to use, the radio option. And then let's see, I have to go ahead and do this. Let me see, input. And I want to make sure I don't make any mistakes here. Okay, and I'm going to say this one is for sandwich. Okay, and then the next one, I'm going to go to the coffee option. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say input, and here I'm going to say type, and this one again I'm going to be making it radio, and then I'm going to make this one coffee. Okay, so there you go. Now here what I want to do is between the labels and input, I want to add a short break. So I'm just going to say break, so they go into different lines. So there it is. And then here also I'm going to put a small break adds say break for this one. So there you go. So I have, so now here you can, this is actually the title and this is the actual radio button. Now here what I could do is, instead of saying label, I can say sandwich options. Okay, and then here I could say two inputs. So I can have two inputs. I can have this one. Let me just take this here, and then I can have sandwich with two breads, and I can say sandwich with one bread. So there you go. So now we have a proper selection thing. Same thing I can do here, coffee with sugar. Again, I'll just take the AI's help. Same thing here, I'm going to say coffee without sugar. So now there you go. So you have the label trying to help you. If you want to make it a little bit more clear, you can add another BR tag like this. Okay, and add another BR tag like this. The BR tag can be really useful at when you're a beginner level. Now, obviously, as you grow, as you move into advanced coding development, there are better ways to add new lines and stuff like that. Some of these things are automatically done for you with Bootstrap. But as you can see, so you have the input radio type, and I've used a legend label. Okay, so that label really helps to show what we're talking about. And then you have two inputs. One is the radio, one is this one. Now here, the thing is, now you will see they both are pretty much identical except for the sentence. So what we want to do is, how do we know which input was selected? Now for that purpose, you need to use some additional attributes. Now there is something called as ID. So I'm going to go ahead and say ID equals, here I'm going to say sandwich one bread. Now this ID becomes really important when you are building a real form, but right now we don't actually have any actual form. This is just a dummy just to show you how it works. So the ID attribute is used in HTML to identify things. Very useful as you keep building more complex things. So make sure your ID is unique when you're using the ID tag. So I'm going to say ID equals sandwich to bread. So you'll see, there you go. So I made sure that when I'm giving the ID identifier, it has to be unique. So I call this one sandwich one bread, and this one I'm going to call this sandwich two bread. So they are different, but still similar. So this is, so when you're naming things, you want to make sure that the name makes sense. It's readable. It gives you some idea what the ID is about. So in fact, for a lot of developers, coming up with names can actually be a challenge. So don't worry if that happens to you. Over time, you'll really become good at naming these IDs and other things, especially in JavaScript and so on. So I'll do the same thing here also. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to add an ID for this also. I'm going to call this coffee sugar, and for this I'm going to say ID, and I'm going to say coffee without sugar. Now I'm not saying you have to name them exactly the way I am naming them. There is no such thing. You can come up with your own unique names. Okay, maybe while you're watching and practicing and coding along with me, go ahead, use exactly what I'm using. But as always, please experiment. Please try new things, and only then move on to the next part, and so on and so forth. So I have the ID, I have the radio type. Now these IDs and those things don't become visible in the output. So they are for programming purposes, data collection purposes. So these two things should be enough to ensure, but let me just make sure, see if I'm missing anything. So I have the type, I have the ID, and then I need a value. Yes, there you go. So we need to know what value this is. So normally what I like to do is, I like to keep the ID and value identical. It's not a bad idea because this is the value that gets sent to the server in a real form. Right now, we just have a dummy form. So I'm going to do the same thing here. So, and again, when possible, I can copy paste. So there you go. Value, just copy paste this. Makes your life easy when you're coding and everything. It's okay if they have the same value. In fact, it is recommended if you ask me. So value, hold on, the value attribute. If you want, you can type it. I'm just copy pasting it for the sake of convenience. Again, copy pasting can help you reduce bugs and errors. So a lot of times copy pasting is actually recommended. Let's get take this, take this, take this, take this. So I have the type of the input button. I have their labels. I have their IDs. I have the value that will be sent to the server. So this specific part of the form is ready. Let me double check. I've got everything. So I've got the label. Yes, sir. I've got the input. Yeah, that looks cool. And that's all there is to it. So label. Now, one thing I want to make sure is the label should contain the input. I think that's the part. So let me go ahead and take this. And what I want to do is I want to put this here, right? Oh, actually, I can actually keep it here. That is fine. That's okay. That's okay. There you go. Okay, that looks good. So that is your first type of input with the input radio. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let's go to the next type. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do a field set again for the second type. Now here I want to use what am I using? I'm using a check box. So once again, I need a legend. So I'm gonna happily copy paste this. There we go, legend. And here select some options for beverage. I already have coffee there. So select options for lunch. There you go. Cool. Here once again, I'm going to go ahead and put a label. I do believe that the label should contain the input ID. Let me just make sure. Yes. So let's do that, guys. Hold on. So let me go ahead and take this label and actually make it go here. There it is. Okay. Sandwich to bread. I'm gonna just remove this. Okay. There you go. Much better. There it is. Okay. Sandwich with 2 bread. That's it. And then another label here. One more label tag. Sandwich for, this is for label for coffee. This is for the sandwich label for sandwich 1. And then this is for label for sandwich 2. And I'm gonna get this nesting this input here. Okay, once again, I want to get all the indentations correct. And there it is. Okay, the same thing here. This here also, I'm going to take this. I'm gonna copy this label and put this here. There you go. Cool. There you go. And then the next, another label here. Label for this again, and then this one here. Okay, indentation. So let's go ahead and make sure I got everything right here. So I have the legend and then I have the label, and the label should contain the input ID, and that's what I'm doing here. If I want a little bit of additional clarity, I can push this like this. So there you go. It's like nested. Same thing here. I'm just gonna say label, push it like that. I believe I can go ahead and get rid of the BR tag. There it is. I can remove this. I don't need that anymore. There you go. That's also, there it is. Okay. Okay. There it is. Okay. Now I do want a division between sandwich and coffee. So what I could do is sandwich 1, sandwich 1 and sandwich 2. Here I want a break. Yes. Okay. New line. And this one is going to be coffee 1 and this one is going to be coffee 2. And I want to move this a little bit like this, so it's a little bit more easy to read. And there it is. So label for sandwich and then the input ID and the value that will be sent to the server. Second label for sandwich 2. Again, sandwich 2 bread. That's done. Then again, a BR tag to leave like a gap. And now I have the labels for coffee 1 and coffee 2. So there you go, folks. That is your first field set, which has 2 separate options. And then you can go ahead and select. So you can see here, you can select. It seems to work. And there you go. Okay. So, all right then. So that is about the radio buttons. Next, let's go ahead and do the checkboxes. So once again, these are things which you'll not be using in this specific course. These are things which you should know, when you go into some advanced learning courses. So let's keep going. So here, what I want to do is I want to use a checkbox, and the best part is I can just copy paste the old code. So I'm gonna take it here. Okay, in fact, I'll take the whole set and I'll put it here. And the only thing is I'm gonna change this from the radio type to a checkbox type. So I'm gonna choose the checkbox type, and there it is. That's it. Very, very easy. Now I don't want to become lazy, so this is for lunch. So what I'll do is I will say, once again, I'm gonna use this thing. I'm gonna say I want to have rice. Okay. And I'll come here in the cursor. I'm gonna say ID. I'm going to change this to rice. Okay, and then here I'm gonna say rice one. Let's call it yellow rice. There is yellow rice actually available in India, so I'm just gonna go with that. Then I'm going to call this rice 2 fried rice. Just put it there. Same thing, ID and value. ID and value. It's good to use them same because it helps when you have a big form. Usually ID and value, if they're same, it's easy for you to debug if something goes wrong. So here I want to put the label. So I'm going to say yellow rice. It's actually a flavor rice, an yellow rice flavor. I'm going to call this. And the fried rice is, again, I'm going to say fried rice with vegetables. There you go. Okay, same thing here. Now for the second one, I want to go ahead and I'm going to say this one, rice 2. Here I want to say lunch. I can have salad. Okay, so I'm going to say salad 1. And then I am going to say salad 2. So here I'm going to come again, update the IDs. So I want to say salad 1, again, vegetable. And this one, I want to call it salad 2, fruits. And now let's go ahead and use the same thing here and this one here. And we need to update the labels as well. So I'm going to say salad with vegetables. And here I'm going to say salad of fruits. And that is, you have your input with radio buttons, and then you have the input with check boxes. Now, obviously, these are input types which have a lot of advanced attributes and features and so on. But then again, we are not actually using a form in our course. So I'm just putting this here so you know what a form looks like, what it normally contains. So as you go into advanced courses, you may end up using all these options in an actual form with a backend server, but that is beyond the scope of this course. So there you go. This is how a simple form would look. But there is one last thing that I need to add to complete the whole form process. So it will have what is called as a submit button. Okay, it has a submit tag. The submit tag looks something like this. I'm just going to make sure I'm on the right thing here. So it is actually a button. And then the type equals submit. Again, the AI is trying to help me, but I'm going to type the whole thing out. There you go. So you have a submit button. So the idea is, the user would select the options they want. And that way giving you the data. And then when you hit the submit button, the data is sent to the server that is mentioned in your action section. So once again, this is all just to give you an idea. For a real form to work, we'll need a backend server, which is beyond the scope of this specific video and this specific course. So that is how a form looks. Let me just make sure if I haven't forgotten something. Let me see. I think everything is okay. I got the form, the title for the form, and then the field set, the legend, the labels, the input types, and then the value. Okay, that seems okay. And then finally the submit button. Okay, so there you go, folks. That is really what we have for you in the form system. So once again, in this chapter, well, in this part of the basic HTML tag chapter, I spent some time showing the form. As you can see, it has a lot of attributes, a lot of different tags, and of course, for it to actually work, we need an actual backend server, which we don't have to show right now because that's not part of this course. And you may not even use a form when you start building web apps where you have to collect data and so on, because the way the data is handled is slightly different depending on the framework you choose to learn. For example, whenever I have to build web apps for a client, for a project, I use React.js and I don't even use the form tag. I use other ways to collect and process data, but you may be using form in some other frameworks and so on and so forth. But still, this is something it's good to know. This code and this chapter itself might be the first time you might face some confusion, and that is perfectly normal. Okay, but still, as always, go ahead, watch the video again and again, look at the example code, replicate it, and so on and so forth, and then before you move on to the next video. Okay, welcome to the final part of the basic HTML portion of our tutorial. So in this one, as always, I have the example code, what you'll be building at the end of this specific video. So let me go ahead and get that on the screen here. There it is. Let me switch over to the screen. Yes, you can still see me there. Okay, so this is what I have for this specific end of this video. So what we are going to do here is, as always, these are all the things that we already did in the previous video, previous part. So the form, that's where we stopped. And this one, I have one last thing to show you, and that is just a simple footer. A footer is something that we will use whenever, just like as I mentioned before, in HTML there are some specific tags that are very useful, especially as you expand your knowledge. So one of those things is the footer tag, which is specifically used to add something at the end of your code. Now, please understand, now I don't really have to use the footer tag. I can literally just go ahead and use a h1 tag or a paragraph tag and treat that as a footer. Nothing is stopping you from doing that. But that's the thing about HTML. It's been around for, I believe, more than 30 years. So every few years, the HTML standards organization, the web standards organization, what they do is they come together, like a conference or something, and they go ahead and add new tags, which kind of do what was already being done in another way, but give it a more specific tag for the sake of standardization and the natural evolution of HTML. So that's what it really is. So it's very straightforward. It's a very simple tag to use. So let's go ahead and give it a try. So as always, I'm going to keep my example code on my other monitor here so I can look at it and make sure that I'm on the right track. So this is a practice folder, the same folder I'm using in the previous parts as well. So as always, let me go ahead, go to the end. Now, this is what I'm saying. So look at this. I was already thinking about a footer, and I was able to put a footer using just a h1 tag. But now that I have an actual footer tag, let me quickly update my PowerPoint here. So let me go ahead and create a new slide. And then here, this specific video is about showing you the footer tag, and then, just wrap up this specific chapter on basic HTML stack. So let's go ahead and do that here. Now, I don't need this h1 tag anymore. I was using that as a temporary footer. So I'm going to go ahead and delete it, but I'll just comment it, just let it be. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use the footer tag like this. And then here I can put whatever I want. So I'm just going to put a paragraph saying this code is for the basic HTML chapter, and that's all there is to it. If you want, you can add a link. You can add an extra paragraph, but nobody's stopping you from doing that. Just adding another line here to illustrate. There you go. That becomes your footer tag. Now, there are specific reasons why you might use the footer tag. As I mentioned, like as you grow and start building advanced projects, you'll start writing styling, you'll start writing JavaScript to manipulate the footer directly. Now, that is when the footer tag itself becomes very, very important, for targeting systems. And so same thing with sections. When you start building a bigger website, when you have the entire website divided into different sections, it becomes really, really useful for manipulation and code management and so on and so forth. So that was the last thing that we wanted to do in this basic HTML tag. So let's go ahead and do a quick wrap up here, and then just show. Let me just put this on Firefox. Let's go ahead and get that here. So there you go, folks. This is what you should have at the end of this specific chapter, which is basic HTML stacks. Okay, now the new one in this specific part of the video is the footer. It looks like any other tag. Like you could literally just put a paragraph tag, maybe another section with the paragraph tag, and then just go ahead and call it a footer. So and also you'll notice, I'm sure you have begun to notice this in web programming or in programming in general. There are always multiple ways to get something done, and you'll start seeing this as time goes. Like for example, you have the h1 tag. If you want to, you can actually use a paragraph tag and then use some css. We'll see css in the upcoming chapters. You can use css to make the paragraph bigger and look like an h1 tag. Same thing with the footer. I mean, till now I was actually using a h1 tag as a footer, but now I have an actual footer tag in which, once again, I'm essentially using a paragraph tag to show what I want to show in the footer. So once again, it's more like a dedicated a tag, or we also use the word DOM element when we talk about HTML. So there are multiple ways to achieve the same effect. So really what I'm trying to say is, as I'm wrapping up this specific chapter, you should have what you see on the screen. It doesn't look attractive. It's not supposed to look attractive. So you should really have this as you wrap up the first chapter and this video. Now, please understand that what we have done is, let me just bring that up on the screen here. Our GitHub code. Let me just get the folder itself. So hold on here. So let me just get the folder itself. Where is that? Either you can open our GitHub repository directly on your computer, or you can, okay, I'm just bringing the folder here on my main screen. So there you go. So this is the folder I'm talking about. So you can see here that in our folder you will have, when you go inside the basic HTML tag, you'll see that we have already divided, just like the videos I have made. I have gone ahead and divided it into chapters. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm in the final folder right now, and this is the final video. So which means, let's say you get stuck at chapter number 2 for some reason. You're not able to get the results as expected. But still you want to go ahead to part 3. It's fine. You can simply take the code from our part 2 and go on from there. It is totally okay. Sometimes you may find a specific part maybe a little confusing, or maybe you want to jump directly to the final chapter for some reason. That is okay. So that is why we have split according to the video. We are giving you corresponding folders as well. So let's say you want to, or maybe you want to revise or study only the final folder, but you don't want to repeat everything from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you can simply take our example code from part 5 and then continue on to the video, which talks about part 6. So that is why we have divided our course into like this. So every part has a corresponding folder. So whenever you're revising or you want to revisit something, you don't have to do all the parts that came before it. You can jump directly to the part that interests you by taking the sample code. So that is what this is all about. You learned some basic tags. Now, please understand here. Let me go back to my full face mode here. Now, you have to understand something here. Now, by now, you have written some tags. Now, we have not covered every tag in HTML. As I keep reminding you folks, you can't really, HTML alone, there must be some 100, 200 tags, maybe more, maybe less, and each of them have dozens and dozens of attributes. So there is no possible way. In fact, if you really want to, you could spend like 3 months or 6 months just learning about HTML and all the attributes. But I don't think you should do that because there's just so much more to learn. So there you go. So we have tried to cover the basics tags that will help you just get a foundation. Now, as the course progresses, you will be introduced to new tags as required and so on and so forth. And this is a general approach I take to programming itself. Like whenever I'm working on a project, a lot of times I don't really know everything. But then again, as I'm working on a project, what I do is like on demand learning. So, like, for example, last year I was working for a client who wanted to understand how to do voice to text conversion and then text to voice conversion. And he wanted to use a library provided by Azure. Now, before I met the client, I did not even know what this library is. I just had a general knowledge that there are libraries out there which can convert from text to voice and voice to text. I've never used them though. So, but when I got this project, I was able to go online, find the library the client was talking about, and then overnight I was able to learn how to use the library. And eventually, me and the client together, we were able to build a text to speech and speech to text software, a web app again. And then, the project was successfully completed and everything was great. So this is the approach I request my students to look into. So in programming, do not focus on if you can remember a lot of things, I'm really happy for you. But then again, a lot of people, at some point you'll hit the limit of how much you can remember. So try to depend as much as possible on references, try to depend on example code. Of course, these days, do not hesitate to take help from AI. And by the end of this course, please, I mean, I don't think everybody will take my advice on this, but I really think before you go to the next part of a specific chapter, before you go from one chapter to the next chapter, I would really insist you watch your videos again, look at the example code, practice, 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 so that by the time, so like for example, before you, the next chapter I believe is the CSS basics. So before you start the CSS basics chapter, you should already be an expert in this chapter. So you should be able to, let me bring my screen again. So you should be able to build this specific output. You can still take some help. You can still take some, like for example, when I'm teaching you, I'm always looking at my example code just to make sure I don't make any mistakes. So it's fine if you have to take some help, but still you should be able to build this mostly on your own, with minimal help. And that is when you're ready to go to the next chapter. Okay. And also, I want to remind you again, by now you should already be an expert. When I say expert, the basics only. You should be an expert at using the basics of JIT. You should know how to create Git repositories, how to run the JIT commands, and so on and so forth. Now, we have included a number of links in our notes material about Git, and of course, additional references for HTML and so on. So please go ahead and do all those things before you go on to the next chapter. So, and also take it slow, go slow the first chapters. Please go as slow as possible. Do not be in a rush. I'm not a big fan of learning with a very hard deadline or something. I like to give myself some breathing room when I'm learning something. Of course, as a developer, every time I have a new project, I have to learn new things all the time. So usually I don't give myself a tight deadline. But then again, I'm old and I'm experienced, so I'm usually able to learn new things in a few hours or a few days. So even if I don't put a deadline, I'm able to absorb new information and of course take help from online resources and AI and get the work, get started with the work really, really fast. So you will reach there as well. But still, as much as possible, try to have an open deadline with learning. Ideally, you should be spending at least 2 hours, 4 hours every day. I don't, I mean, I don't think you should be studying like every day or something like weekends and all, but maybe 5 days a week, 2 hours, 4 hours per day, if you can muster. If you can do 8 hours, again, like a full length college or something, that'll also be good. But still, take it slow is what I'm trying to say. So that's a wrap on our, let me just bring my PowerPoint again. So that is a wrap up on our basic HTML chapter. The next chapter, I believe, is CSS basics. So I will see you with that one. And if you come this far, then thank you very much.